All right, we can get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the Victory Square Technologies Investor Webinar Series featuring portfolio company Hydreight Technologies, TSXV, NURS, or HYDTF on the OTCQB. My name is Julia Becker. For those of you who don't know me, I am the VP of Corporate Communications with Hydreight Technologies. And joining me on our panel today is Shafin Tejani, who most of you already know, founder and CEO of Victory Square, Shane Madden, CEO and founder of Hydreight Technologies, and Vahid Shababi, Chief Growth Officer of Victory Square and advisor to Hydreight, who has been working very closely with Shane and the Hydreight team since the acquisition was made a few years ago. So a couple housekeeping items. The team will be providing an investor update as well as a deep dive into Hydreight's performance, latest achievements, partnerships, and upcoming catalysts to drive its mission of building the largest mobile clinic network across the United States. Following the presentation, we will have a question and answer period, which I will be moderating. If you have any questions, please add them in the chat function at the bottom of the screen. And just a friendly reminder that today's discussion may contain certain forward-looking statements. I won't bore you with all of them, but investors are cautioned not to place undue reliance on such forward-looking information, and that such information is considered reasonable based on the information available to management as of today. So it is now my pleasure to turn the webinar over to Shafin for a brief introduction. Shaf, over to you.
Thanks, Jules. As Jules mentioned, my name is Shafin Diamond. I'm the CEO of Victory Square Technologies. Quick recap for shareholders. VST provides investors with a liquid way to invest in early stage technology companies without buying a venture fund that requires accredited investor status or multi-year commitments. We were founded to fill the early stage investment gap for a broad range of investors. We provide VC investment access to these next generation of tech companies in an audited, transparent, and liquid investment vehicle, effectively democratizing access to the next generation of the best startups. VST or Victory Square is your key to investing in a portfolio of the world's most innovative and disruptive early stage companies with the purchase of VST shares, which are traded on the CSE, OTCQX, and the Frankfurt exchanges. We have a diverse portfolio of 25 plus next generation companies from around the world. And speaking of portfolio companies, I'm super excited to bring on one of the ones that I think investors have heard me talk about, being excited about, that was also recently listed and named one of Canada's companies to watch in Deloitte Technologies Fast 50 program, Hydreight Technologies. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to the CEO of Hydreight, Shane Madden.
Thank you, Chef. Hello, everybody. Make sure I'm not on mute. There we go. Pleasure being here. Always love talking about Hydreight and interacting with the VST shareholders. So what I'll try to do is give an overview again of the company for anyone that has limited knowledge or is new to Hydreight. Give you kind of overview of what we try to create, barriers to entry and industry solving solutions that we brought up, and give kind of highlights of what we've been doing this year, looking forward to next year. So Hydreight was actually formed in response to the fragmented healthcare industry in 2018. I think everybody knows that the healthcare industry as a whole has been struggling, and COVID highlighted it, but it was happening in various areas long before that. So it was formed in response to that. Essentially, the company's vision was to be a nationwide mobile medical clinic network. So again, pretty broad, pretty impressive mission statement. That had never been done before. We get referred to as the Uber for nurses, which is a bit of a slight on the company. It's much more than that, but we get referred to that not because of a mobility aspect or because of a software side of things. We get referred to that because we were the first company that actually allowed healthcare professionals to work as independent contractors outside of the traditional bricks and mortar. Again, that hadn't been done before, so we get referred to one of these disrupting type platforms. Creating anything that is very, very new, has its own challenges. Obviously, there was a large proof of concept in such an endeavor, speaking to state boards, 50 states in US, which is like 50 little countries. There's 3 boards in each, the nursing, the pharmacy, and the medical board. So coming up with a platform that is essentially compliant in all 50 states for what we're trying to do was incredibly challenging, but the company was able to do that. And then obviously we had steps of growth to the eventual goal, which was a nationwide network of mobile medical clinics. So again, I'm going to try and keep this high level and go into the some of the highlights and topics. But to that point, just to explain the levity of what has been created here. Essentially, we started with a mobile medical network, first of all, called a PC network. So our proprietary technology sits on an actual medical network, and that's part of what makes everything tick. So the nurses are acting as independent contractors within that medical network and utilizing the technology to actually operate day to day in the modern way that all patients and any user of anything at this stage actually likes to work. So we're a medical network at heart. We have proprietary tech, and then essentially to be able to be the juggernaut or the first to market of a platform of its kind, we had a lot of barriers to entry to solve. And one of the things we're very cognizant of in Hydreight is to remember who our user is. So you know, a nurse didn't set out to be an entrepreneur or they set out to give care, be a service provider. They're credentialed to do X, Y, and Z, and we're providing a platform that is essentially connecting the patients, the doctors, and the service providers in a way that has never been done before. Individualized healthcare is the way everything is going. So essentially closing the loop on medicine is what we try to achieve here. And we've been very, very successful. So some of the barriers to entry, just to go into them, is for a nurse to actually operate outside of a bricks and mortar, i.e. a hospital or a doctor network or a doctor clinic, is essentially illegal in 30 of the 50 states because of a corporate practice of medicine law. In the other 20 states, it's incredibly difficult, costly, and simply it's very, very difficult to do without spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then again, you're a one-man band, you're not part of a platform. So we are a necessity platform. It is not an option for a nurse to go and do this a different way. We were the first to market. And we are the only company that is actually driving the mobile medical business forward from a platform perspective. So again, I just wanted to touch on that this is a necessity platform for nurses to monetize their credentials outside of a bricks and mortar setting. So some of the challenges would be medical direction, access to pharmacy. Now, access to pharmacy is one thing, but then neither a nurse or a doctor is a pharmacist. So access to a doctor or pharmacist to be able to put dosages together and different things for the services that are going to be offered. Malpractice insurance, a legal structure to make it legal. Medical direction, access to a doctor if there's a telemedicine call involved. As well as many, many other things, access to technology, access to customers, support, all of those things that would make this essentially undoable. So our platform kind of encompasses all of those and makes it essentially business in a box for a service provider. Our model is threefold. We're a software as a service company, annual subscription, typically between $3,000 and $4,000 for the year. And that gives access to the medical network, the tech, access to the pharmacy, medical direction, all of the things that are needed to actually do business. We have a 10% facilitation fee of all services that are done through the app. And then we have our pharmaceutical supply. Everybody is contracted to order the pharmaceuticals that are going to be given in the services through our digital pharmacy. So those are our 3 revenue streams. As Hydreight was actually being formed and as it was solving these industry problems, we actually started to solve problems for bricks and mortars. So we focused on expanding our offering, and not just on Hydreight and our nurse vertical, but also into a white label. So the same challenges that the nurses would have had getting into this business are the same challenges that bricks and mortars have regarding compliance, medical direction, access to doctors, access to pharmaceuticals. So we created our white label. We have a number of white labels who actually work with us, who are contracted again to order all pharmaceuticals through us access to our doctor network. They work on our medical platform. The drip bar is one, the Covery is another, but we're actually going to be aggressively looking after those looking forward into next year. So we again solve problems. So the necessity of the platform for the nurses and the problem-solving platform aspects for the bricks and mortars are two of the core cornerstones of the platform. So how it's going, we're in about 1,000 locations across the country, all 50 states, approximately 3,000 nurses in Hydreight, growing exponentially year on year. One of the inherent challenges of any new platform is not only do the service providers have to understand that this is a thing, because again, you're forging the way for all of this, but the patients have to understand that this is also a thing, on the mobile side of things. And because our vision was mobile medical network, we had to start with something achievable. So we started with IV therapy, almost specifically and exclusively, because for a number of reasons, it was really much in demand for the customers, i.e. the patients. It was an accessible pharmaceutical product for distribution across 50 states. And essentially, it was very, very monetary expendable for the nurses. So it was a perfect flagship product. So we started there, but the vision was always to expand into these other services and eventually into essential services to kind of align with our goal of being a mobile medical network. So that's kind of where the company has been going. I'll go into some highlights shortly. Just to give a few stats on the I guess the scalability of this company and where we are in that eventual roadmap. As I said, we have about 3,000 nurses across all 50 states. There's 4.5 million RNs in the country. So again, scratching the surface in that regard. Our adjusted revenue for this year, our top line adjusted projected revenue for this year is about 15 to 16 million Canadian, which again is an incredible increase, over 100% increase on last year. This is showing very much organic traffic. We have focused this year on a number of things. Essentially structuring the company to bolster various divisions for this growth. So obviously, there's an incredible buzz around this company. Any new platform that can offer, people who are unhappy in a particular industry a new way of operating, of life, better quality of life, monetizing their credentials in a different way, access to patients in a never before done way. There's always a lot of buzz. Now, within that, we wanted to structure the company essentially for that growth. So we added some divisions like our success department. We added some great individuals and built a department around supporting the nurses after they have gone live in areas that they would not be skilled in, attaining their first 20 customers, for example, or 50 customers, or constant re-engagement, or if we're rolling out a new service. We invested in that area hugely. We invested in our onboarding to give a better experience, better and faster experience from the time they sign up to the time they go live. We put a heavy focus on expanding our service range, again, to help not only the nurses be able to offer more than IV therapy and a couple of other things, but to actually, continue our growth towards our eventual goal, which was full mobile medicine and full mobile medical clinics across the country. So we had a huge focus on that. The other thing that sets this company apart, I think, from not only a vision perspective initially, but also ongoing, is we're always looking at the changing landscape of the medical industry as a whole. So we invested heavily this year in basically what's coming legally between the three boards. Is there anything we need to watch out for? Is there anything we need to be on top of or ahead of? And we invested greatly there. We aligned with a firm who has direct access to all three medical boards. So we're able to see legislation that is coming or even being thought of 9 months down the road and just stay on top of those. So between the nursing, pharmacy, and medical board, that was something that was very, very important for us, because if you don't know what's coming, you can't be ahead of it, you can't scale. Before I move on from that topic, one important thing regarding our platform is we were formed before COVID. COVID has highlighted a lot of the, not only the fragmented industry as itself, but it highlighted the need for this type of service. It shone a light on mobility. It shone a light on mobile care. It shone a light on essentially what the patient's needs are and how archaic the practices had been. But because we were formed before COVID, a lot of laws that were relaxed during COVID and then came back affected other companies, whereas we were structured that way. And obviously we had a different vision. So all 50 states mobile medical network is a pretty big vision, but the company is there. The company has expanded into other services, so aesthetics, some patient-specific services, which basically is just a higher level of medicine in many ways. Semi-glutide, NAD, there's other offerings that fall under the patient-specific bracket. These are all additional things. Lab testing, some of those complement the patient-specific, but there's also some lab testing that is done on its own, you know, genetic testing and blood labs and a lot of those. So again, offering more services, being able to be more versatile. The nurses have more ability to earn. The platform has more ability to offer to its patients. And again, all of these, again, we're heading in the same goal as being a mobile network. So those were some of the highlights for this year. Huge focus on legal, huge focus on bolstering the company for this continued growth that we're having, but also the exponential growth that is coming. There's a tremendous interest in the company, as I said. Some of the people on the call would have heard me talk about this before, but we were the main sponsor at the Nurses March in Washington, D.C. last year. Over 40,000 nurses marched about, you know, the conditions, the work, the industry as a whole. We were the main sponsor. We were the main speaker. We've had tremendous traction from then on in, people understanding about the platform. Some of them sign up right away. Some of them sign up in 9 months. But there's tremendous interest in this company. People are really starting to see what we're trying to do. We come at everything from a compliance standpoint first. We want to protect the patient, protect the nurse by having a seamless flow, oversight, protecting everybody's licenses, protecting the medical care. We also expanded to that point of we expanded our doctor network to align with the expansion in our other services and our patient-specific services. We expanded our doctor network to over 150 doctors now. So essentially, telemedicine is going to be a higher level of oversight for some of these services. Lab testing is involved, the review of those labs, and building all of that into a very seamless flow. Sounds easy, but when you're involving a number of service providers and a patient that wants to come to a piece of technology or an app, click, book a service, and get the service all in one seamless flow, that's the challenge. So that's what Hydreight has done. So again, we're I would say 90% there of the eventual, if not 95 of the eventual vision, which was again, without sounding redundant, to create a nationwide mobile medical clinic. Some other things we focused on this year was, obviously the supporting of our nurses after they go live. The success department, we built on there for continued education. We also tacked on Mobile Med IV, which was a platform in collaboration with VSDH, which was essentially a dispatch service. We released that in phases, essentially just to be able to manage the growth of the platform and what we needed to change from a offering standpoint. So that side of it is really, really exciting for us heading into next year. The driving of patients to the platform is a heavy focus for us. So endeavors like Mobile Med IV, endeavors like B2B relationships that have access to either patients or service providers are a huge focus for us. Other things we focused on this year was essentially legal direction. So our continued education and our access to patients next year will be a huge focus for us. We're going to add to our our service provider network. We're going to add to our patient offering, and then essentially we're going to focus a little bit more on our white labels because we do have a unique relationship from a fundamental standpoint from a compliance perspective that all of these bricks and mortars need to benefit from. So we're going to focus heavily on those opportunities. And yeah, that's kind of a high level of Hydreight, how we've been going, what our vision was, and looking forward to hearing any questions.
All right, well, thanks, Shane. That was a great update and overview. Quick reminder, if you do have any questions, please submit them through the Q&A at the bottom of the page. We already have a couple coming in, so thank you to everyone. All right, so Shane, in talking about kind of the revenue mix of the business, can you provide an update on, where that revenue mix is right now in terms of the different buckets, and maybe where you see it moving forward in terms of split? Yeah,
very even. Great question. Very even right now. Across all three revenue streams, which would be fairly typical. We're seeing obviously a very consistent organic month-on-month growth. We have about 65 to 85 new business partners come on every single month from a software as a service perspective. Obviously, as I touched on this year, some of our real focuses was to bolster the divisions to support the entire journey of that customer, whether that's onboarding, customer success after they go live, or the ability to actually get in contact and drive customers to them. So we put a huge focus there. So the software as a service side is there. The pharmaceuticals, of course, that whole division goes up as the service providers go up, and then the services done themselves is where we have been putting a huge focus on, and we're going to continue that into next year. Right now, it would be very even. What we're going to see, I think, is the buckets 2 and 3, services and pharmaceuticals, start to outgrow the new locations, just from a 50-state perspective. And remember, we had a similar challenge, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but we had a similar challenge to some of these other groundbreaking platforms, in that we had to have a foothold across the country before we could really throw fuel on some of the buckets. So driving patients to the platform is an absolutely massive thing on our radar for forward facing next year.
Awesome. Thank you. Next question. And I mean, you touched on it a little bit in terms of our growth drivers, one of which is, adding more services to the platform. Can you just touch on, specifically which new services have been rolled out, and how that adoption is going?
Yeah. So again, I'm not gonna try to sound redundant here. So mobile medical clinic, that's the goal, nationwide. So IV therapy is very expensive. For anybody on the call that doesn't know, IV therapy is not just one thing. It has a menu. It's 12, 13, 15 different services for different things. As you start to branch into the patient-specific things, semaglutide is obviously the buzzword around the country right now. Some people would know it from the branded version of Ozempic or Wegovy or Rybelsus, but semaglutide is actually the foundation of that, where everything is built from. The compounded version is the cheaper version, more attainable, I guess I would call it, for most of the country that don't possibly have medical insurance or can't afford $1,500 a month. That is really, really popular in demand. Again, it's patient specific. It's a slightly higher level of medicine. It requires lab testing and telemedicine and all of those things. So a platform like ours is absolutely perfect to roll something like that out across all 50 states. NAD Plus is another one that's naturally formed in your body, but it's like a magic, like a fountain of youth. Helps with mental health, helps with aging, helps with general health. It helps with all of these types of things. And then obviously rolling out other health services is the goal. So whether that is lab testing and various within that, there's a plethora of things that you can do within lab testing. What we're trying to do is close the circle on healthcare. So individualized healthcare. So the analysis for you specifically, the ability to have a service provider go out and give the care that came from those results, or telemedicine, and have that follow-up piece. That's where our platform is going, but that's where medicine is going as a whole. That is where all of this is going. So having these essential services is obviously broadening the horizon for our nurses, but that was always the goal.
Thanks for that. Another question just regarding the white label, and I know you did give some specific examples, but regarding competitors that are no longer compliant within state laws due to the changes, I guess, in healthcare regulations, have any of those businesses integrated onto the Hydreight platform via white label? And then maybe if you can just talk a little bit about the strategy moving forward to tackle those businesses and get more direct white label partners.
Yeah, again, brilliant question. Whoever's writing that, I appreciate these types. The white labels that we focused on are not vendors, essentially. So we focused on the bricks and mortar side. So the two that I mentioned are actually franchise bricks and mortars. One has, I think 600 plus locations sold. They're new franchises, so 25, 40 open. The other one has, I think, over 150 sold and 10 or 15 open. But we have them in contracts for a few years. So all that upside is coming. The people who have closed down when COVID came back, restriction-wise, they were more specifically in IV, right? So they weren't structured correctly. We see a lot of the nurses come across to our platform. We haven't pursued the businesses themselves from a white label perspective because, to be quite honest, they weren't big enough, first of all. We would see them maybe as a straight competitor. Plus, all of the nurses are coming onto our platform, or a large percentage of them anyway. So we're going to focus more on B2B that are either directly related to providing more nurses on our platform, or directly related to giving us more access to patients.
Great answer, and thank you. Shifting focus, and another one of those catalysts moving forward that you discussed were in line with, let's call them strategic tuck-in M&A opportunities. Can you provide an update on those, how you think they'll contribute to the growth, and where you see these opportunities adding the most value? I mean, either you or Vahid, if you want to jump in as well.
Yeah, I can take it first. Vahid, if you want to jump in, that's great. Regarding our M&A, we're really looking at a couple of areas. So is this going to increase our service provider offering dramatically? Is this going to increase our access to patients dramatically? Or is there a vertical that we currently cannot offer that we can align ourselves with, right? A tech play or a bricks and mortar play. So those are the three we look at. Without being too specific, because I can't obviously, we're very far down the road with a couple of those. One specifically on the nurse recruiting side. The model we see there, the big advantage we see is, first of all, access to tens of thousands of nurses directly. And then a hybrid model where if they're not working as a travel nurse at the hospital, they're working on Hydreight. And even if they are working as a travel nurse, if we do the M&A, we're actually benefiting from that also. So I see that as a huge piece. Some other initiatives, I'm not going to go off the question here, but I just think it's good to bring it up because it's kind of related, is that some of our initiatives is similar to what Microsoft did back in the day with the schools, right? They basically gave the software out, and then everybody who came out of college, whether you're an attorney or a doctor or just a general business person, all you knew was Microsoft. So we're actively going to look at things with nursing colleges. That type of nurse is absolutely perfect for our platform because they've grown up in this technological world. They've grown up in the mobility side and obviously the side gig economy. So their take on this platform is completely different than, say, a 55-year-old nurse. All right, so that's something we're actively looking after as well.
And just looking at the growth moving forward, obviously the company has seen kind of extensive hyper growth year over year organically. What are your thoughts around kind of the future? Do you see Hydreight being able to continue this organic growth trajectory, or will there be some sort of equity financing, or like what's the landscape in terms of financing versus M&A and organic growth, please?
Yeah, we haven't started growing yet. I can tell you that. Right now is the result of a groundbreaking platform, incredible interest, But I can tell you that people we spoke to in 2020, that this sounds amazing, signed up in 2022, right? This is only going to get more traction from essentially more street cred, if you want to think of it that way, right? We're all aware that there's a problem in the industry. Even the nurses are marching. We're all aware. The organic growth is not even an issue. I mean, we are 3-4 weeks booked in advance with sales calls. We are growing, month on month from a revenue perspective, and there's no problem there. That's not going to slow down. What we want to do is bolster the company and offer more services that eventually, suit our goal, but also, make sure that there's pay for the providers that are on there. Of course, they're going to do their own independent contractor, and they're going to do their own local things. But we want to focus on driving patients to the platform in a major way.
Great. Vicky, did you have anything to add?
So no, pretty much Shane addressed them all. The second part of the question, excuse me, that was asking about any sort of equity financing or any additional funding. So the company right now is doing great. We're not seeing any need for any additional cash for the company to grow. Obviously, we have our growth plans, and we're heads down, focusing on growing and scaling the business with different tactics, from organic to, if we can do, again, M&A can be one of the options, and continue adding more, add more services. We haven't discussed or talked about having any equity financing, because again, the company is doing great. At any given point, any decision for the company goes to the value that brings to the investors and shareholders, and for the company to see what makes sense for the company to do to get the highest return of investments in any decision that we make. And any additional information in that regards, we'll communicate it with the shareholders.
Great, thank you. And I guess, speaking of value, one additional question is, what is the company doing to promote the business, and I guess its achievements, to increase the share price or value?
So our focus as a company in last 3 years, and since we've gone public, is focusing on the structure and scaling the business, and focusing on the great the fundamentals for the company to grow and deliver the numbers, and going up on the revenue, offering customer satisfactions. Now, as a public company, we do have the responsibility to also get more eyeballs on the stock. Now, there are a few different factors to consider. One, obviously, the entire small cap market, from the volume perspective, has been affected with the economy factors. That it's not in one industry or the other industry, or one company, the other company. The volume in the Canadian side, especially in the small cap market, has been hit. Now, with all saying that, like any other approaches that we have for the company, we don't want to go after the shortcuts. We're not a big fan of doing one big promo that we're just gonna kind of have the wrong approach for the marketing our company. We've been very active on meeting with different people, attending different conferences, having different webinars. We brought on board Julia Becker as our VP of Corporate Communications, because one thing that I want you guys to consider, that we're one of those companies that our customers and our nurses can be our shareholders. So we want to make sure that we have a proper communications to the outside world, and have a very solidified message to go out there, from the investors to bankers to customers to partners, that they all can be part of this story. We had to wait for our OTC and DTC eligibility, because this is a US story. Everyone in the United States can download the app and actually try us overnight, and feel the service and the product. Then after that, we started, focusing more on getting our story out there, meeting with different shareholders, share our story, and continue nurturing and updating them. We started working with, after a long due diligence, we have a short list of the IR firm that we want to work with in US and Canada to help us to get to more basically doors from the investor perspective. In last 60 days, we attended multiple events. We had few road shows in Canada and met with different investors and bankers. But we continue doing that because, again, we are a company that we are delivering what we've been saying. And this is not something only talking about the forecast or forward-looking statements. If you go past the 8 to 10 quarters, we've been continuing having the same growth and we're delivering it. There are challenges like any other business that we're addressing that as we move forward. So to answer to your question, it's not one thing or two things that we do. We're trying to share a story with all the shareholders and to talk about like the entry level, our revenue, our story, our solutions, and the pain points in the market. And by continuing in doing that and being consistent on doing that, we believe that we can get more traction in the capital market side, and we can have more investors to follow and invest in us.
Great, thanks, Vahid. Yeah, I guess in the last 30 days, we've been busy with over 50 meetings with investors. It's been fun. Maybe Shaf or Vahid, if you want to take a stab at this, explain to the investors why making the Deloitte top 50 companies to watch list is significant, please.
So I don't know how much you know about the Deloitte Fast 50 program. That Deloitte Fast 50 program, it's not only in Canada. You see it all around the world, in Europe, in US, that Deloitte as an independent firm, they go and review different companies' growth. And it's not a paid award that you pay to be selected. It's not something that you just fill up an application and you get selected. It's a very lengthy process for them to review the company, review the financials, and go through that. They receive, again, I don't know the exact number, but they receive thousands of applications to review that every year to find the top companies. And because of the reputation of this award, it brings more eyeballs on the company from many different perspectives. Obviously, being a publicly traded company, it's going to have more eyeballs that is going to follow the story that has shown growth. Because this award is only based on the growth of the company. And you have to have a minimum threshold of the revenue since 2019, at least for this year, and then have certain specific percentage. And it's not a threshold for you to be qualified. It has a threshold to be qualified, but it's not a specific threshold to be named as one of them. You compete against all the other companies that they're dealing with the same economy, they're dealing with the same factors. So when a company being recognized by an award like this, that shows our position in the market in compared to all the other companies in our category, SaaS model companies, in Canada and all around the globe, that having another confirmation of how the team is working and the growth is having some reflection on how the company is working.
Just to add to that, to what Vahid mentioned, when you look at that list, a lot of the companies are private. So not only getting new eyeballs on it, if people want to have an opportunity to invest and get access to some of these companies, they'll see that Hydreight is publicly listed and audited as well. So, and there are other, like EY has an award. Once you get on and through the vetting process of one of these lists, there's a snowball effect. So this could lead to additional and further validation of the company, like Vahid mentioned, not just in Canada, but the US and elsewhere, which again, more eyeballs, more confidence, more validation, for the company. And people can see that, based on the revenues, that Hydreight is significantly undervalued right now. So
Thanks, Shaf. Switching to the competitive landscape, Shane, barriers to entry, who's doing this? What are our competitors, and where do you see that kind of moving forward?
So there's no direct competitor in terms of what we have tried to set out and achieve, which is a 50-state nationwide platform allowing healthcare professionals to act as independent contractors whilst not practicing medicine independently. So there's no direct competitor. We were the first to market, and we are the ones that are forging ahead. There is pockets of, we'll say, one service type, like IV therapy. There is pockets of people around the country doing just that one service. Our barriers to entry and the time that we have taken to, whether it was proof of concept or whether it's our continued forward-facing monitoring of legislation, that's what sets us apart. So we have not only a fully 50-state-wide medical network, we have a 50-state-wide doctor network. We have a platform and a business model that allows all types of service providers to join and monetize their credentials. So there is no competitor in that respect. Obviously, from an individual service perspective, there is pockets of bricks and mortars and here and there, but nobody from a business model perspective.
Okay, great. One more question that just came in. Some people might view the services that these mobile nurses provide as a luxury, with the economy in the US less than favorable right now, arguably all over the world. Do you see a decrease in demand for the services provided? And how, what's the plan to attract new Hydreight business partners or license holders and nurses on the platform?
Yeah, the IV therapy could be viewed as a luxury, and I wouldn't disagree with that. There is obviously treatments within the IV therapy range that are not. They would be very specific to health reasons. But we have exactly expanded into more of the essential services, and that's what we're going to continue to do for our overall vision, which is essentially to be a fully mobile medical network. So the branching into patient-specific services such as semaglutide, NAD, again, they deal with diabetes, weight loss, and mental health, and then obviously the lab side of things and more of the.
That is the way the platform's actually going.
And just to add to what Shane mentioned, right now in the United States, we see that the whole longevity and prevention of medicine is growing really fast. That we can see, again, for example, Ozempic, that right now is a big demand right now is around the weight loss. Or even if you look at some of the aesthetic product, they've gone after prevention more than being a treatment. So everything that we're offering right now, as Shane mentioned, has a longevity and a preventional factor to that has a long-term positive effect. With all saying that, as again, reminding on what Shane shared at the very beginning, as far as the vision of the company to be the largest mobile clinical network, we're not just pausing on these services. We'll continue adding more services to get to essentials and to get to urgent care, patient monitoring, and all that. That again can be done organically or with acquisition or any of that. But that's also the vision that the company has for the next 18 months.
So I just want to add one thing to what he'd mentioned too. There are, some of those services like Botox, for example, once you are on that program, you can't really stop. So, looking good and feeling good is really important for people. So I think services like Veed mentioned, and Shane mentioned the semaglutides and Ozempic, this is a monthly thing that, people are taking. So looking good, feeling good, I think, during even challenging times, people will still spend money on those types of, categories. And as the company adds more essential services. So one of the good things about some of the services is they're recurring. It's very difficult for people to kind of drop off of it. And one other thing, as the economy gets more challenging, I think this also opens the door for business partners like nurses who need to have, make additional income on the side. We generally see during challenging times, people are looking for, I don't want to call it a side hustle, but additional, ways of sourcing and generating revenue. And that also could be a, boon to the fact that, Hydreight's, built this program for all 50 states. So I think there are, even in a challenging economy, there's some significant benefits that the company has.
Great, thanks, Shaf. In terms of acquisition of new nurse business partners, what's the strategy in acquiring new nurses and then maybe I guess retaining the nurses on the platform? This investor said, I recall from an earlier webinar that you wanted to build up demand for the services before bringing on too many partners. If you can just talk a little bit about onboarding, I think you did a bit, but anything more to touch on that would be great.
So from the growth perspective of getting more business partners, we're looking at it from three different ways for the next 18 months. One is going to be the organic. And when I say organic, is including the marketing and sales channels that we have created through social media, through marketing omni-channels, through the nurturing systems that we have, referrals, and all those programs. We call that as organic that we're doing right now. The second way is, again, we don't want to get too much in details, but as Shane mentioned, is going to be M&As on some of the organization that has a complementary service to what we do, but they have the same crowd from the persona of the potential customers to have the higher penetration into that market in a quicker way. And the third way is, again, Shane had a glance on that as well, is focusing on the new generation of the nurses that is coming to the market, working with schools and introducing this concept as a have to, not a good to have, or that these nurses coming with the mentality that they all can have this side gig to provide the services the way that they want, with their own terms, with their own schedule, at the customer's convenient, is the third way of doing that. Obviously, the third way, it's a medium to long-term plan to get that adoption level from that. But as soon as you create those channels, those are the channels that is going to stay with you forever. Kind of create a farm system to bring people that they're ready with this concept. So those are the three different ways that we have it. From the retention perspective, we have, as most of you know, we have two different layers of the subscribers. One are the business partners who's paying for the license. Then each of the business partners, depending on the license that they have, they can have a few different service providers. Many of the business partners are also the service providers. We have business partners that they were on the $4,000 package that they could have had 3 service providers. They upgraded to $10,000 package per year to have more service providers. So we are creating that kind of like a marketplace or a matching system for the business partners that they can initiate enough business to work under other people's licenses that they need help with, and creating that. Now, that has created more opportunity for us, because one of the departments that we created in 2023 is the success department, to focus on the success of our nurses and our clients. One of the initiatives that they're creating, they started a small group of the user groups that not only we educate them on different topics, but also these nurses get together, exchange ideas, recruit each other to work for each other, and also help to grow their own business base in different areas. So these are a few different avenues that we have, we have a plan for, or we have taken to add to our business partners.
Great, thanks, Vahid. All right, so we're coming up to the top of the hour. I think we've got time for one more. And Shane, we've actually been asked this question a number of times, and I think it's a great way to end the series. So what keeps you up at night? In terms of competitive landscape, risks, any pain points?
That's a pretty loaded question, Julia. But I'm about to have twins, so I think that's the answer in a couple of weeks. But from a business perspective, Not too much. We're looking at the right things. Let me put it that way. I think if we weren't looking at the legislative side of things, far-reaching, that would be the answer. But we're looking at the right things. Obviously, we're all super excited about this company. We're very passionate about growing it to the heights that it can get, and we're just in some cases possibly being overprotective, right? But we're definitely looking at the right things. But constant eye on what is coming down the pipe from medicine as a whole. It's a highly regulated industry. Those things are top of the list 100% of the time. So if there was anything, that would be it.
Great, no, and thanks for that. That concludes our presentation today. Thank you everyone for attending and listening to the Hydreight team give our presentation. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get to all of the questions. So if you do want to follow up direct with any questions, please do. We'd be happy to answer. And Victory Square, Shafin, thanks so much for including us in your investor series. Everyone have a great week. Thanks so much.